The bus rattled to a stop at the edge of Millbrook, and Elena stepped onto cracked pavement that hadn't seen repair in years. Autumn wind carried whispers through empty streets. Not quite voices, but close enough to raise a hair on her neck. She'd come here chasing a story, the kind that could salvage her failing journalism career. An entire town evacuating after dark, night after night, with no explanation that made sense. You shouldn't be here. The voice belonged to a man leaning against the general store, arms crossed. His eyes held the hollow look of someone who'd stopped sleeping properly. Then closed down 3 weeks ago. Everyone leaves before sunset now. Elena checked her watch. 5:47 p.m. October meant darkness came early. I'm staying at the old Morrison place. Arranged it online. The man's face paled. That's on the forest edge. You're either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. He pushed off the wall, approaching her with urgency. Listen to me. When the sun sets, lock yourself inside. Board the windows if you can. And for God's sake, don't answer if something calls your name. Before Elena could respond, he was already walking away, his pace quickening as shadows lengthened across the street. She watched him disappear into a house, heard multiple locks clicking into place. The Morrison place was exactly as advertised, isolated, creaking, and covered in ivy that seemed to claw at the windows. Elena dropped her bag and immediately began exploring, her investigative instincts overriding common sense. In the attic, she found journals, dozens of them dating back decades. The entries all described the same phenomenon. Disappearances starting at midnight. Townspeople found wandering back at dawn with no memory of the night, until eventually they stopped returning altogether. The sun touched the horizon, painting the forest in shades of blood orange. That's when Elena noticed the footprints in the yard. Not quite human, not quite animal. They were everywhere, circling the house in patterns that suggested intelligence and purpose. A knock at the door made her jump. Through the window, she saw a figure, tall, androgynous, with features that seemed to shift in the failing light. They wore a cloak that moved like smoke, and when they turned toward her hiding spot, their eyes caught the last rays of sunlight and reflected it back like a cat's. The stranger smiled, revealing teeth just slightly too sharp. "You're the one who doesn't run," they said, though the door remained closed between them. "How refreshing. My name is Kieran, and you and I, Elena, need to have a conversation about what hunts in these woods before midnight comes and the choice is taken from you." Elena's hand trembled on the door handle. Every instinct screamed to keep it locked. But she'd come for the truth, hadn't she? She opened the door. Kieran moved like water, flowing into the house with an otherworldly grace that made Elena's journalist brain catalog every detail. Up close, their features were arrestingly beautiful. High cheekbones, copper hair that fell in waves, and those golden eyes that seemed to see straight through pretense. There was something distinctly vulpine in the angle of their face, the way they tilted their head when listening. "You're not human," Elena said, proud that her voice remained steady. "Not anymore." Kieran settled into the armchair by the window, arranging their cloak with deliberate care. "I was once, before I made the mistake of falling in love with this cursed town and choosing to stay." Their smile turned bitter. "Want to know the real story behind Millbrook's midnight exodus? It's not what the journals say." Elena grabbed her notebook, then hesitated. "Will you let me write this?" "If you survive to do so." Kieran's expression softened slightly. 40 years ago, the town council decided the old-growth forest was worth more as lumber than as sacred ground. They ignored every warning, every plea. The morning they sent in the logging crews was the morning they severed a pact that had protected this place for centuries. The room grew colder as Kieran spoke. Outside, true darkness had fallen, and with it came sounds, rustling, scratching, voices that weren't quite voices calling names in the wind. "The forest guardian is ancient. Elena, it doesn't think like you or I. When the pact broke, it decided that since the town took from the forest would take from the town. One soul each night. Claimed at midnight, absorbed into the roots and leaves and soil. Balance restored one death at a time." Elena's pen stilled. "But people come back. The journals say." "The early ones, yes, The Guardian was merciful then, simply taking memories, leaving warnings. Kieran stood, moving to the window. Their reflection showed something more animal than human for just a moment. But mercy has its limits. Now those who vanish don't return. The forest keeps what it takes. Why are you telling me this? Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. What do you want? Kieran turned, and the intensity in their gaze made Elena's breath catch. They crossed the room in 3 smooth strides, stopping close enough that Elena could smell pine and autumn rain on their skin. Because you're different. You came here seeking truth when everyone else runs from it. The Guardian senses that. It's curious about you. Their hand rose, fingers barely brushing Elena's cheek. The touch sent electricity down her spine. Part fear, part something more dangerous. There's a way to break the curse, Kieran whispered. Someone willing to face the Guardian in its domain, to offer something more valuable than stolen trees. A life freely given, or... They paused, eyes searching Elena's face. A truth so profound it reshapes the pact itself. What kind of truth? Outside, a clock somewhere began to chime. Kieran's expression shifted to alarm. We're out of time. It's almost midnight. Stay inside, Elena. Promise me. But the words died on their lips as the front door burst open, revealing the forest beyond transformed. Trees glowed with bioluminescent light, and shadows moved between them with terrible purpose. A wind swept through carrying Elena's name on 1,000 whispered tongues. Kieran grabbed her hand. Whatever happens next, don't let go. The forest swallowed them whole. One moment, Elena stood in the doorway of the Morrison place, Kieran's hand tied around hers. The next, ancient trees towered overhead, their bark etched with symbols that hurt to look at directly. The bioluminescent glow came from fungi growing in spiral patterns, from moss that pulsed like a heartbeat, from the eyes of creatures watching from the undergrowth. This isn't possible, Elena breathed, though the journalist her was already trying to catalog impossible details. The forest isn't this large. We're only a quarter mile from town. Geography works differently here. Kieran pulled her close as something massive moved through the trees to their left, shaking the ground. Their body was warm against Elena's back, solid and real in a landscape that felt increasingly dreamlike. The Guardian's domain exists parallel to your world. Step wrong, and you could walk for days without finding your way out. Elena felt Kieran's breath against her neck, the rise and fall of their chest. Despite the terror, or maybe because of it, she was acutely aware of every point where their bodies touched. You've been here before. Many times. Kieran's voice dropped to something raw, vulnerable. I told you I fell in love with this town. What I didn't say was that I fell in love with someone from it. Her name was Rebecca. She was curious like you, fierce like you. 40 years ago, when the curse first took hold, she was the first to vanish. Elena turned in Kieran's arms, seeing the ancient pain in those golden eyes. You've been searching for her all this time? I've been serving penance. Kieran's thumb traced Elena's jawline, an intimate gesture that felt earned despite them being strangers hours ago. I was the one who told Rebecca about the logging plans. I thought she could stop them, use her influence on the council. Instead, I got her killed. The Guardian offered me a choice, die with her or become its messenger. I chose wrong. I've spent 4 decades watching this town empty out, unable to save anyone, including myself. The vulnerability in that confession cracked something open in Elena's chest. She rose on her toes and kissed Kieran. Soft at first, then deeper when they responded with desperate hunger. Their hands tangled in her hair, her fingers clutching the fabric of their cloak, both of them seeking solace in connection. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, the forest around them had changed. The path ahead glowed brighter, as if their moment of genuine emotion had pleased something vast and watching. The Guardian responds a truth, Kieran said, understanding dawning in their expression. Real, raw, human truth. That's what it lost when the town betrayed the pact. Authentic connection to this place. It's been starving for it ever since. A sound echoed through the trees. Footsteps that weren't quite footsteps, a presence that made the air itself feel heavy. Between the ancient trunks, a figure emerged, taller than any human, crowned with antlers that seemed to grow from its skull, eyes like pools of starlight. Moss and vines wove through its form, and its face was beautiful and terrible in equal measure. The guardian had arrived. It spoke, and its voice was wind through leaves, water over stone, the groan of old wood. You trespass with purpose, Elena Reyes. I taste your determination like honey on the air. And you, Kieran the Bound, you bring another lamb to my forest. Have you not learned? The guardian moved closer, each step causing flowers to bloom and wither in its wake. Elena forced herself to stand firm, though every instinct screamed to run. Beside her, Kieran had gone rigid, their hands still gripping hers like a lifeline. I didn't bring her, Kieran said, voice steady despite the tremor Elena could feel running through them. She came seeking truth. That should mean something to you. The guardian's laugh was autumn wind through hollow trees. Truth. Yes, the town promised truth once. Truth in partnership, in respect, in sacred exchange. They lied with axes and chainsaws. Why should I value human truth now? Elena stepped forward, shaking off Kieran's attempt to hold her back. The journalist in her recognized a crucial moment, the kind where cowering would mean losing everything, because you're starving for it. Kieran told me, you feed on genuine connection, on authentic relationship with the land. The town's betrayal didn't just break a pact. It broke your trust in something you needed. The guardian's eyes fixed on her, and Elena felt the weight of the tension like physical pressure. Clever little human. But cleverness is cheap. What do you offer me that justifies 40 years of taking? What truth balances the scales? Elena's mind raced. In the journals, in Kieran's story, in the pattern of disappearances, there had to be something, some thread she could pull. And then it hit her. The truth is that the town council's betrayal hurt you, Elena said, the words crystallizing as she spoke them. You're not just enforcing balance. You're wounded. You trusted humans for centuries, and we destroyed that trust in a single morning. The souls you're taking, they're not really about balance, are they? You're searching for something. Someone who'll rebuild what was broken. The guardian went still, so completely motionless it might have been carved from stone. When it spoke again, its voice held something almost vulnerable. 40 years. 40 years. And you were the first to see it. Kieran's grip on Elena's hand tightened. The curse. You could end it. If Elena's right, if that's what you've been seeking. I could, the guardian acknowledged. But truth demands truth in return. You speak of my wound, Elena Reyes. What of yours? Why do you chase stories into cursed towns instead of living your own life? The question struck home with surgical precision. Elena felt heat rising to her cheeks, felt Kieran's questioning gaze on her. That's not relevant. Isn't it? The guardian circled them both, its presence making the air thick with the scent of loam and growing things. You seek truth from others but hide from your own. You spent 3 years running from vulnerability, from connection, from anything that might require you to trust another person. You're safer behind your notebook, aren't you? Observing rather than participating. That's not fair, Elena whispered, but the words rang hollow even to her own ears. Kieran turned her gently to face them. In the strange light of the forest, their features were soft with understanding. It's okay, they said quietly. Truth hurts. That's how you know it's real. Something in their acceptance broke down Elena's walls. My ex-fiancé sold a story I'd been working on for 2 years, sold it to a rival paper under his name. When I confronted him, he told me I'd always been better at collecting information than understanding what mattered about it. He said I'd documented life instead of living it. The confession emerged ragged, painful. He wasn't entirely wrong. Kieran cupped her face in both hands. He was wrong about what matters. Your desire to understand, to dig for truth. That's not a weakness. It brought you here. It helped you see what no one else has in 4 decades. They kissed her again, and this time Elena let herself fall into it completely. No walls, no armor, just raw connection. Around them, the forest hummed with approval, light intensifying. The guardian watched their kiss with something that might have been satisfaction, When they finally broke apart, breathless and trembling, it spoke. You begin to understand. The pact was never about transactions. It was about relationship, trust, vulnerability, the things your kind find hardest to give. Elena's mind was working again, pieces falling into place. Rebecca, Kieran's lost love. She was the first taken because she came into my forest with genuine grief, the Guardian finished, mourning what her town had destroyed, seeking forgiveness for their sins. I kept her not as punishment, but as companionship, a reminder that some humans still understood sacred connection. Kieran made a sound like a wounded animal. She's been here? All this time, I thought. She rests in the heart of the forest, held in dreaming stasis, neither dead nor truly alive, waiting. The Guardian's expression shifted into something almost gentle, waiting for someone who could rebuild what was broken, someone who could teach the town to see the forest as sacred again, not as resource to exploit. Elena's heart raced as understanding crystallized. That's the real curse, isn't it? You don't want souls. You want healers, teachers, people who will restore the relationship. Yes. The Guardian extended one hand, and a glowing feather materialized in its palm, white gold and pulsing with inner light. Take this back to your town. Plant it where the first tree fell. Tend it with truth and genuine care. When it grows, when the people learn to honor rather than take, Rebecca will wake. The others lost in my forest will return. The curse will transform into covenant once more. Kieran reached the feather with shaking hands, but the Guardian pulled it back. Not you, Kieran the Bound. Your penance is nearly complete, but this final task belongs to another. Those starlight eyes fixed on Elena. Will you accept this burden? To stay in Millbrook, to teach a town that drove itself to emptiness how to love the wild sacred again? It may take years. It will certainly take everything you have. Elena thought of her apartment in the city, mostly empty. Her career, already circling the drain. Her life, built on walls and distance and the safety of observation. Then she looked at Kieran, beautiful, broken, waiting for an answer that would determine whether 40 years of grief had meaning. I'll do it, Elena said, on one condition. The Guardian tilted its antlered head. Bold, to bargain with me. Not a bargain. A request. Elena squeezed Kieran's hand. When Rebecca wakes, Kieran gets to be there. They get to say goodbye properly, or hello again, or whatever needs to be said. 40 years is long enough to suffer for trying to do the right thing. Something that might have been approval flickered across the Guardian's ancient face. Done. But know this, Elena Reyes, I will be watching. Millbrook's redemption rests in your hands. The forest dissolved around them like mist burning off in sunlight. Elena woke in a Morrison place as true dawn broke through the windows. Kieran lay beside her on the floor, both of them tangled in their cloaks, the glowing feather resting between them like a shared promise. Outside, she could hear movement, townspeople emerging cautiously from their homes, confused to find themselves greeting a sunrise without loss. Kieran stirred, eyes opening to meet hers. It really happened. It really happened. Elena picked up the feather, feeling its warm pulse against her palm. I need to find where the first tree fell, and you need to help me figure out how to teach a whole town to fall in love with a forest. That could take years, Kieran said softly. I know. Elena kissed them, slow and deliberate. Good thing I finally found a story worth staying for. They went to the old town square together, Kieran's knowledge of Millbrook's history guiding them to a paved parking lot that had once been ancient grove. When Elena pressed a feather into a crack in the asphalt, it sank down like a seed finding soil. Green shoots emerged immediately, growing with impossible speed into a sapling that hummed with the same bioluminescent glow as the Guardian's forest. The townspeople gathered, watching in silent awe. Elena turned to face them, no longer hiding behind her notebook, and began to speak about pacts and sacred ground, about the price of betrayal and the possibility of redemption. But as the weeks passed and the tree grew, as Elena and Kieran worked to rebuild Millbrook's relationship with the wild, Elena sometimes caught glimpses of golden eyes watching from the forest edge. And at night, Lying wrapped in Kieran's arms in the Morrison place they claimed as home, she could swear she heard whispers on the wind. The Guardian was watching. The forest was waiting. And somewhere in its dreaming heart, Rebecca slept on, but not, Elena hoped, for much longer. 6 months later, the tree had grown massive, its roots cracking through the parking lot asphalt and reclaiming the space. Millbrook had transformed, not back to what it was, but into something new. Gardens replaced lawns. Hiking trails wound respectfully through the forest edges. Children learned the names of plants and the seasons of growing. Elena's article about the town's transformation had gone viral, bringing curious visitors who wanted to learn about sacred land management. She'd stopped trying to leave and started calling Millbrook home. And Kieran was changing too. Their fox-like features had softened slightly, becoming more human with each passing month. The Guardian's binding was loosening. The morning the tree bloomed, filling the air with impossible perfume, they both felt it, a shift in the forest's heartbeat. Kieran grabbed Elena's hand, and they ran together into the woods. They found her in a clearing neither had seen before. Rebecca, opening eyes the color of new leaves, alive and whole and utterly confused. The Guardian stood nearby, and for the first time, Elena saw it smile. The pact is renewed, it said simply, and faded into the trees like morning mist. Kieran and Rebecca's reunion was tearful, joyful, complex. Elena stepped back, giving them space, understanding that some stories needed to finish before new ones could truly begin. But when Rebecca finally turned to her, there was recognition in her eyes. "You're the one who understood," she said. "The one who saw what I tried to teach them 40 years too late." "Never too late," Elena replied. "Just a longer story than expected." That night, the three of them sat beneath the great tree, Kieran, Rebecca, and Elena, trading stories and planning Millbrook's future. And though the shape of things had changed, though love was more complicated than fairy tales suggested, Elena had never felt more at home. The forest whispered its approval in the wind. And somewhere in the darkness, a fox's cry echoed, not a warning, but a blessing.